The Lord of the Rings revolves around these guys, the Fellowship. But what if we took them out of the equation? Would Middle-earth be purged into eternal darkness? Well, that's what we are testing today. Because we are going to be trying to beat the LEGO Lord of the Rings game without the Fellowship of the Ring. So, let's get into it. Level 1 is by far the easiest level in this challenge, because it's the only level in the game where you don't have to play as any members of the Fellowship. Instead, in this level you play as Isildur, his father Elendil, and Elrond. With them, you have to fight off hordes of orcs, and then defeat Sauron in a cool ass boss battle. Collect his ring, and climb to the top of Mount Doom, where just before you throw away the ring, we get Isildur's famous line, which for some reason I chose to moan over. Level...
Cast it into the fire!
Mission... No.
Destroy it!
No. But after that, the level completes, and we head into the next level, which is where the challenge actually starts to get difficult. Level 2 is called the Black Rider, and this is where the challenge actually begins. Because usually, in this level you have to play as Frodo, Sam, and Gandalf. So, how did I try to beat this level? Well, firstly I tried playing through the level normally, which takes forever, because your character is forced to sneak around the whole time. Anyway, playing through the level without the Fellowship doesn't pose too much of an issue, because in this level, you mostly have to use Sam's abilities, such as the ability to dig and grow plants to get past the Black Rider. Luckily, I found out that the legendary Tom Bombadil can dig and grow plants. So, in the first section of the level where I had to use abilities, I used Tom Bombadil to dig up a rock and throw it at a branch, which caused a boulder to roll and distract the Black Rider so I could continue sneaking past him. The next area I had an issue with was an area where a short character is required. Normally I would use Frodo or Sam since they are both hobbits. However, for obvious reasons I can't use them. However, loads of characters in this game are short due to there being a plethora of dwarves and hobbits that are on the roster. I decided to use the blacksmith, who's a dwarf, and climb through the hatch to the top of the tree, where I made a bird fly away and make some noise to once again distract and make the Black Rider go away. I was then able to make it to the final section of this part of the level, where all I had to do was use Tom Bombadil to grow a plant so I could walk past the Black Rider without being seen. And for some reason, he sings to the plants and makes them grow. I don't know why. The next part of the level starts us out as Gandalf in a fight with Saruman. Luckily, we can immediately switch off him to a character in the forest to avoid using him, and continue on with the level like normal, which pretty much followed the same formula as before, with me having to do various tasks such as pushing a boulder in order to distract the Black Rider. I also had to grow plants so I could continue forward, and finally, throw a rock at a beehive in order to cause the Black Rider to run away so I could complete the level. However, when I went to the end of the level, it just simply wouldn't trigger. At first I thought I'd maybe skipped something in this level since I wasn't using the characters you were meant to, and it turned out I had. So I went back and completed the level doing everything correctly this time. But even then, the level wouldn't finish. So I eventually came to the conclusion that the reason the level kept soft-locking is because I didn't play through the Gandalf part of the level. And, unfortunately, I couldn't complete the Gandalf part for obvious reasons. However, I wasn't willing to fail the challenge on level 2. So I did my research and found arguably one of the most confusing skips I have ever done. This is how it's done. Basically, I'm attacking, then tabbing out and holding pause, and then tabbing back in, and then waiting a bit and unpausing. Oh, and also, it has to be done with someone who has a frying pan. So I used the female hobbit Rosie, and well, this was the end result. The glitch allowed me to skip that part I was stuck on, and entered this chase sequence, which I finished and completed the level. Before we get into the next level though, if you guys do end up enjoying this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, because we are so close to hitting 3k subs. Anyway, enough begging, let's get into level 3. Level 3 starts off pretty easy, with me having to make a fire and cook some food. So, firstly, I collected the firewood by breaking 2 bushes and then building this path, so I could move a rock to unblock the hatch. Then, I went up the hatch using Gollum and broke another bush to get the final piece of firewood. I placed all the pieces of firewood in the pit, and then went to collect the ingredients that I was going to cook. I got the eggs by going back up the hatch with Gollum and doing some parkour, so I could knock over a bird's nest. I then had to fish in order to get the lobster, which I was worried about at first, because I thought Pippin was the only person who could fish. And obviously he's a part of the Fellowship. Then I remembered that Gollum could fish, so I used him to get the lobster. Finally, I got the tomatoes by using Tom Bombadil's ability to grow a tomato tree. Once I had all the ingredients, I put them in Rosie the female hobbit's frying pan, but before I could cook it over the fire, I had to light the fire, which was an issue, because the only person in the game who can light fires is Sam. Well, kind of, because in LEGO Lord of the Rings you have the unique ability to use items which can be found at levels as collectibles. And one of those items is a magma rock, which I will be using to light this fire and others in the challenge. I'm allowing this because the rock can be collected in free play, which this challenge would not be possible without. Hopefully that makes sense, and on top of that, it's my video and the big Yahoo said it's okay, so yeah, we can do it. Anyway, moving on. After lighting the fire and cooking the food, a cutscene plays and you enter the next part of the level, which is really easy, because all you have to do is break some bushes in order to build a bridge, and use Tom Bombadil's abilities to help you reach the door that leads to the final part of the level, which I already knew was going to be pretty difficult, because the final part of the level revolves around you using the ring as Frodo to sneak around and fight off the Black Riders. Luckily though, although difficult, we can once again use the super launch that we used in level 2 to launch us into the level's end transition to beat it without using any of the Fellowship. And although it took many, and I mean many attempts, like over 50, I finally got it and completed the level. Also, just look how high I get launched. In level 4, we can take a breather and actually just play through the level like a normal free play playthrough, because this level is easily doable without the Fellowship. However, it is a little bit tedious, because this level is basically just you having to carry around and throw a dwarf. In this case, because we can't use Gimli, we use his dad Gloin. This is also the first level where you're meant to use Legolas, but we can easily replace him in these levels with any other elf, since they all share identical moves and abilities. So apart from the occasional use of the Magma Rock, this level was an absolute breeze, and to be honest, so is the next part of the level, which completely changes up the scenery. In this part of the level, you're trying to get into the Mines of Moria, and all you have to do in order to do so is collect 3 pieces of firewood so you can start a fire in order to unblock the path into the mines. You first have to dig up the base of the fire using someone with a spade, so I used Tom Bombadil again. And then I went hunting for the pieces of wood, which were all really easy to find, since they're just scattered around on the floor. After getting all the wood, I lit the fire using the Magma Rock and triggered the final bit of the level, which is a boss fight against a big ass octopus. Much like the rest of this level, this boss fight really posed no challenge, and was a lot less fun than I remembered, because it seemed to just continue dragging on. Anyway, in order to beat this rip-off Cthulhu, you have to dodge his tentacles for a while, until eventually he will get one of them stuck in the ground, and you can attack it to damage him. You have to repeat this process a couple times until eventually the Kraken shows his face, and you have to throw a dwarf at him in order to defeat him and complete the level. Level 5 starts off nice and easy, with me having to fix a well by firstly using the Magma Rock to burn down a wall and reveal a key, which I can use to unlock a chest and grab a cog and attach it to the well. Then you have to break open 2 chests in order to get some bricks to continue building up the well. Then finally, I used a blacksmith to break open a wall and grab a lever, which I attached to the well and cranked in order to trigger the cutscene to the next part of the level. In this next part of the level, you have to fight off a bunch of orcs. And after doing that for a while, a cave troll that kinda looks like me after waking up from a nap busts down the door. You have to fight off this cave troll by baiting him into throwing his ball and chain at you, and getting it stuck so you can climb across the chain and shoot arrows at the cave troll's face. After doing this enough, another cutscene will play, and when it finishes, unfortunately, Merry is on the back of the cave troll, and you have to use him in order to complete the level, which 100% goes against the rules of this challenge, since Merry is a part of the Fellowship. However, all hope was not lost, because if we go back to the beginning of the level, we can pull off possibly the hardest LEGO glitch I've ever done on this channel, which is another super launch. But once I launch, I had to spam pause in order to fall further across the screen so we can get to the section of the Outer Bounds we need to be in. And to be honest, I don't really know how to describe what else I did, so I'll just roll the clip. So, after completing the skip, I continued on with the level as normal, fighting off swarms of orcs and using Radagast magic abilities instead of Gandalf to put a cog in place so I could open the door to the next part of the level. In this final section of the level, I had originally played through it normally, doing all the puzzles and everything without the Fellowship, but I found out none of it mattered because either way, at the end of the level, you were forced into a falling segment with Gandalf that you have to complete in order to beat the level. So, I went back and did one last launch skip to complete the level without the Fellowship. Now, we are officially one level off completing the first movie in the trilogy. However, my hopes and dreams of completing this challenge were immediately nuked off the face of the earth, because as soon as I spawned into the level, my second character was permanently stuck as Frodo, and unfortunately, even after doing everything with my other character, the level would still refuse to progress. My last hope was to look online for a skip, but I found nothing, meaning you cannot beat LEGO Lord of the Rings without the Fellowship. Well, there you guys go. I know it was an anticlimactic ending, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video nonetheless. Let me know down below if you guys like the faster paced videos, and apart from that, have a lovely rest of the day, and subscribe, or else.